Howdy! Welcome to the Fresh Toones Show. My name is Dave Paltz, and today's show is a celebration of National American Heritage Month. November gives us a chance to celebrate the rich and diverse cultures and all the important contributions. It also gives us a chance to be a little bit more aware of the hardships and struggles that they've had to prevail. I'll be sharing 3 short mini documentaries that I wrote about 3 notable Native Americans. The mini docs are about Chief Standing Bear, Sakalasa, and Wilma Mankiller. If you're not familiar with their stories, you might want to listen in today. Here's the little mini doc that I wrote for Chief Standing Bear, a great social activist way back in the 1800s.
Thanks to the folks who led the way. Thanks to the folks, let us thank them every day.
Today's inspirational live show is dedicated to Chief Standing Bear, who in the 1800s was one of the first Native American civil rights warriors. Not too long ago, a statue of Chief Standing Bear was installed in the Statutory Hall in the U.S. Capitol. There's not a lot of Native Americans that have been recognized this way. Chief Standing Bear was a tribal chief of the Ponca tribe who lived on the west bank of the Missouri River, which is now northeastern Nebraska. In the mid-1800s, the Ponca tribe tried to develop good relationships with the U.S. government, and they ended up turning over most of their land. They only kept about 58,000 acres for a reservation for themselves. For many years, the tribe struggled to survive by farming the barren land that was left to them. In 1868, the U.S. government created the Great Sioux Reservation, and the Ponca tribe lands were inside its borders. So the Ponca were supposed to leave what remained of their homeland and move to the Indian Territory in Oklahoma. They resisted, and Standing Bear, or tribal chief, protested the most. But in 1877, the government sent in federal troops to force the eviction. A third of the tribe succumbed on the journey, and most of the rest were either ill or disabled. In December 1878, Chief Standing Bear's 16-year-old son passed away, beginning a sequence of events that would eventually bring some justice to the tribe and to the Native Americans throughout the country. After Chief Standing Bear's son died, he was determined to return to his former home and bury his son in familiar grounds. He and a few of the tribe's remaining members started the 2-month trek back to their home in Nebraska in the middle of winter. At the time, Native Americans weren't allowed to leave their reservations, so Standing Bear's group were labeled renegades and were arrested by the Army, with the idea that they would eventually be returned to Indian Territory, where they, quote, belonged. A general named George Crook was sympathetic to Standing Bear and his followers, however, and Crook enlisted the aid of a newspaper journalist named Thomas Henry Tibbles on the tribe's behalf. Tibbles then secured the services of 2 prominent attorneys from Omaha to represent the tribe, all the while writing about the tribe's plight and invoking the sympathy of the American public. The lawyers claimed that Standing Bear's group couldn't be detained, saying that they were American citizens and entitled to legal rights. The government's response was that the Native Americans did not constitute, quote, persons under the law. Chief Standing Bear was making the case that Native Americans were American citizens and entitled to legal rights, and that he had the right to leave the reservation and move around freely. The U.S. government didn't think so, and they took him to court. And when his case got to court, and it only lasted 12 days, but in court, Standing Bear stated, "That hand is not the color of yours, but if I pierce it, I shall feel pain. If you pierce your hand, you also feel pain. The blood that will flow from mine will be the same color as yours. I am a man. The same God made us both." Most people thought that his words were a waste of breath. But in a landmark decision, Judge Elmer Dundy, despite comments about Native Americans being, quote, weak, insignificant, and generally despised race, somehow ruled in favor of Standing Bear, declaring that he and his band of followers were, indeed, persons under the law, and as such were entitled to move around the country like any citizen. It was the first time that Native Americans had been legally declared to be people who had legitimate rights to all the freedoms guaranteed under the Constitution. The government appealed Dundee's decision, but it was upheld in the U.S. Supreme Court. Standing Bear was free to return to his home territory and bury his son. When Standing Bear himself died, he was also buried there. Well, Standing Bear truly had the will to fight for his rights, and that court decision was a major change for Native Americans. A lot of injustices still exist, and things have a long ways to go, but that was a major step, and this was in 1878. So if we can find the will, we can often find a way.
If there's a will, there is a way. If there's a will, there is a way. If there's a will, there is a way.
Well, that was just a short overview of Chief Standing Bear's accomplishments. We have much to thank him for. Certainly during this month of November, we are exposed to some sizable changes in our seasons. And during this month, we can learn from the Native Americans just how important the things that nature has to teach us. This is a fresh tune of mine called Nature Teaches.
Nature teaches us to beware, to take our time, to love and care, to feel the glow that helps us grow, to see the beauty and behold her mountains sing, her oceans crash, with deserts dry and forests wet. We can't deny that light and shade give us new breath to find new ways. May never know all there is, but when we seek, sweet nature sings. So let us take this moment now to listen close, to hear the sound, to prize the beauty within the song, to join in voice, to sing along. Nature teaches, so bold at class, her lessons are taught everywhere. Keep eyes wide open and you will see the teacher loves you, it's pretty clear. Nature's gifted you her song, and now it's time to sing along.
Yeah, nature has a lot to teach us. We just need to go to class and listen to her. This next mini doc is about Sikalasa, and it's kind of fun that it was shown at the My Heroes Film Festival, and then they have an online thing with all these heroes that people made documentaries about available to teachers in the schools. So that's kind of cool that the documentary is being used that way. Here's the story of Sikalasa. The story of Sikalasa. She was also known as Gertrude Simons Bonin, which combines her missionary given name and her later married name. She was of the Sioux Nation. She was a writer and musician, educator, and political activist. She wrote several works chronicling her struggles with her cultural identity and the pull between the majority culture she was educated within and her Dakota Sioux culture into which she was born and raised. I'm going to start with one of my favorite quotes of hers. Look up and see a new day dawning. Sitkala Say was born on February 22nd, 1876, on the Yankton Indian Reservation. She spent her early childhood on the reservation with her mother, who was of Sioux Dakota heritage. When Sitkala was 8 years old, missionaries from the Whites Manual Labor Institute in Indiana came to the Yankton Reservation to recruit children for their boarding school. Sitkala Say's older brother had recently returned from such a school, and her mother was hesitant to send her daughter away. Sitkala Say, however, was eager to go. For children who had never been off the reservation, the school sounded like a magical place. The missionaries told stories about riding trains and picking red apples in large fields. After debating the decision, Sitkala Say's mother agreed to let her go. She did not want her daughter to leave and did not trust the white strangers, but she feared the Dakota way of life was ending. There were no schools on the reservation, and she wanted her daughter to have an education. According to her autobiography, as soon as Sitkala Say boarded the train, she regretted begging her mother to not let her go. She was about to spend years away from everything she knew. She did not know English, and tribal languages were banned at the school. She would be forced to give up her Dakota culture for a, quote, American one. Sitkala Say's arrival at the school was traumatic. The children learned that everyone would get a haircut. In Dakota culture, the only people to get haircuts were cowards who had been captured by the enemy. Sitkala Say resisted by hiding in an empty room. When the staff of the school found her underneath a bed, they dragged her out, tied her to a chair, and cut off her braids as she cried out loud. Later in life, she wrote that the staff of the school did not care about her feelings and treated the children like, quote, little animals. After a few years, the school granted Sitkala Say permission to visit her mother during a school break. During the visit, her mother encouraged her to abandon school and stay at home. But she later wrote that visiting home made her sad. She returned to the school. Like many children, she may have felt that she no longer belonged on the reservation. Life at the school had changed her. In 1895, Sitkala Say graduated and joined a teacher training program at Earlham College in Indiana, where she was one of the few indigenous students. She then transferred to the New England Conservatory of Music, where she studied the violin. By 1900, she was teaching music and speech at the Carlisle Indian School in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, one of the most famous boarding schools in the country. Sitkala Say worked at the Carlisle School for less than 2 years. The experience reminded her of her traumatic education. She watched a new generation of young children arrive on trains and have their hair brutally cut. She began to question why the school required the children to give up their entire culture in exchange for an education. She saw the staff treat children cruelly and learned that the government paid the school for every child successfully removed from a reservation. She realized the schools were designed to erase her people's culture. Sitkala Say channeled her frustration into a love for writing. She wrote about her personal experiences and the customs and the values she had learned from her mother. Soon her essays and short stories were published in national magazines like Atlantic Monthly and Harper's Monthly. In 1901, she published a compilation of her work in a book called Old Indian Legends. That same year, Sitkala Say left the Carlisle School and returned to South Dakota. She took a job at the United States Bureau of Indian Affairs that supported her financially while she continued her true passion, writing stories that promoted Dakota culture and values. While working at the Bureau, Sitkala Say met fellow employee Raymond Talafis Bonin. They were married in 1902 and had one son, whom they named Raymond. The family moved to Utah, where Sitkala Say worked as a teacher. She did not teach at a boarding school, but at a school on the Ute Reservation where children lived at home. While teaching, she met William Hansen, a music professor at Brigham Young University. With William's help, Sakala combined her love of music and writing. She wrote The Sundance, an opera based on her essays. It was the first published opera written by a person indigenous to North America. Because many indigenous customs were passed down orally through music, Sakala believed it was a powerful way to share her family's value and reach a new audience. Sakala would spend the rest of her life trying to preserve the custom of the indigenous people of North America. And that was just a brief overview of Sakala life. And in the spirit of Sakala, who was a poet, I have a poem called Green Communion, where I tried to delve into my experience of being out in the woods and surrounded by the green forest. Green Communion. We bathe in sounds and forest thick, communion there with wafered gifts. Her wisdom rap, the crickets chirp, a host to all who walk and search. To see her palette infinite, to lift the brush and paint with love. A mystery each day in kind, great beauty waits for us to find. Our spirits served, art is created, a seamless bond that once was hid. To gaze into the ocean deep, the crystal's mirror, so much to see. Let us take what's been reflected to heights above what now is seen. We've spied the map, so let's proceed to take our steps and follow her lead. You're listening to the Fresh Toones Show, and today's show is a celebration of National Native American Heritage Month. Been sharing a few stories of some notable Native Americans, and the third person that I'm going to share their story with you about is about Wilma Mankiller.
Thanks to the folks who led the way. Thanks to the folks, let us thank them every day.
Wilma Mankiller. Although her name might sound kind of scary, she worked with other folk, and she actually worked with the federal government to pilot a self-government agreement for the Cherokee Nation and with the Environmental Protection Agency. I'll get into a little bit more of her story because it's quite a story, and although she's no longer with us, her spirit is certainly with us. And on many of the reservations, water rights and getting fresh water to the people that live on the reservation is a big concern and a problem. And Wilma Mankiller certainly worked to try to resolve that problem. She's probably best remembered as the first principal chief of the Cherokee Nation, but her life, in particular her early life, back in 1969 when she joined the Alcatraz occupation, she was just 24 at the time, but so much was going on in the nation at that time. But she realized when she joined that group that it really brought attention to the problems with the reservation and the living conditions of so many Native Americans, that it changed her life, and she became a lifetime activist. Most of her efforts were focused on education and job training and overall health care for her people. She really believed in the strength of her people and that the Cherokee Nation could once again offer a fuller life for all the members of the Cherokee Nation and fuller life for all Native Americans. Well, in 1985, when Wilma Mankiller ran for the principal chief of the Cherokee Nation, first time a woman ever even had tried to run as the principal chief, there was a lot of sexism in the Cherokee Nation. Her life was threatened, but she fought and eventually beat out the normally expected competition. And then she went on to represent the Cherokee Nation in a very effective way. And if anybody really exemplifies, if there's a will, there's a way, I think Wilma Mankiller really exhibited this confidence, and that's why she was as successful as she was. Well, Wilma Mankiller fought really hard to break down the sexism that existed in the Cherokee Nation. And actually, in the past, the Cherokee culture had embraced women in power. And she tried to bring this to the attention of all the Cherokees, that there was a delicate balance that existed in the well-ordered world of men and women. She was pretty successful in her efforts, but unfortunately, in 2010, she died from pancreatic cancer. Well, Wilma Mankiller really worked hard her whole life to try to work towards a world that she wanted to live in, and she wanted her Cherokee Nation to live in, and all Native Americans and everyone actually to live in a better world than we presently are part of. We've got a pretty good lifestyle here, but there's certainly things that need improvement, and she certainly was a prime social activist that it was a shame to lose. But her spirit and inspiration can live on in many of us, and hopefully we can contribute to that world that we'd all like to live in. If you want to learn a lot more about her, there's a book called Mankiller, A Chief and Her People, and there's a documentary that's out called Mankiller. You should check them out and learn a lot more about her than I could share with you today. There's an awful lot of folks that want to be the star, and maybe it's in LA or wherever, but she was certainly a star and gave us some directions that we might like to follow. Well, there's over 9 million Native Americans in the United States. Within those 500 federally recognized tribes, there are hundreds of different cultures that are unique as the people they represent. There is much to be appreciated and learned from. And where I'm broadcasting from is in Rochester, New York. We have some beautiful falls in the area, and actually the city of Rochester is located right at the high falls of the Genesee River, just before it empties into the Lake Ontario. So I've certainly had the opportunities to appreciate some beautiful falls, and I think that's what inspired this next song called The Water Falls.
The water falls from the rocks above, from the mountains flow to the foam below. She's played the mist, we felt her kiss. We raised our eyes and she saved our lives. Her strength instills a loving will, gives guidance to the flow. The cascade's beauty took our breath. Her roaring waves shook our nest. We took a drink from her pool. It sparked the flame to sing this tune. Her strength instills our loving will, gives guidance to the flow. Let us dive into her well and bathe with bliss and wonderment at the gifts the falls have brought us peace, brought us love. Her strength instills our loving will, gives guidance to the flow. Her strength instills our loving will, gives guidance to the flow.
Well, it's almost time to wrap up the Fresh Toones Show for today. And of late, I've been trying to share one of my most recent songs at the end of the show. And this song is called Crack the Seed.
Crack the seed and you will grow. A clear direction, no status quo. Our building labors craft our lives. Each colored thread will clarify. Not here to please, ourselves to be. Put down the weight and sing with ease. Take the time, extend a hand. Give what you've got, that's all you can. The view we seek one day come true. The weaver's hand will knit for you. A tapestry of vivid colors to wrap you in your love for others. Not here to please, ourselves to be. Put down the weight and sing with ease. Take the time, extend a hand. Give what you've got, that's all you can. Crack the seed and you will grow. Nurture your love and let it go. The more we give, the more we live. Let's shine our light every night. Be the folks we want to be. To know our love will set us free.
I hope you enjoyed the 3 stories that I shared with you today about Chief Standing Bear and Sikalasa and Wilma Mankiller. It's very important that we take the time this month in particular to learn and grow and to be more aware of our nation's first residents. Have a great week. Be creative. So long now.
Let us sing now, lift us up to higher ground. Let us see and hear the sounds, a rising sun and the birds that sing. Release the song, let your love take wing.